Hey friends, Steffanie here. And I thought today I would just kind of pop in. It's day 10 post Hurricane Helene. Give you a few updates, introduce myself, and show you what we're doing to keep our own home in order. Today we went, you can hear a helicopter. I haven't heard a lot of them today, so that's good to hear. Today we went to church. I'll post a link below to our service if you want to hear it. It was much needed for the soul to get together and just be real. We were at the high school because our church was flooded in downtown Marshall. And if you're new here, a lot of people are coming in because of the hurricane coverage. I'm Steffanie. I don't even know if I would call myself a homesteader. I've been a gardener for over 20 plus years, originally from North Florida. We sold everything we owned and traveled for a year in our camper. We just really wanted to reset and simplify our lives and go back to a very simple way of living. So that's what we did. We had a big house, you know, the American dream, the boat, all the things. And it was just robbing us of our joy. So we ended up here in Western North Carolina. We're in the Marshall, North Carolina area, one of the towns completely devastated by Hurricane Helene. And we got here in 2019. We were just traveling through and we had plans to keep traveling and we had things lined up for the winter, but I just felt this deep calling from the Lord to prepare and get your house in order was the message. We didn't even have a house, and we just decided, I was telling my husband, I feel like we're supposed to go look at homes. We looked at two. The second one we saw was this cabin behind me, little log cabin. We bought it, and our plan was to Airbnb it and keep traveling and maybe Airbnb the camper when we wanted to be here. That was in August of 2019. And that's just, like I said, the Lord was just saying something's coming. I have this deep calling to get our house in order. Obviously, we know what happened after that. And so we did end up traveling that winter, came back here when things started to get weird, and really settled into this cabin. Now, the problem when I got here was there's not a lot of land, and I want to grow all our own food. And I'm going to take you guys on a tour inside the cabin soon, and then outside as well. But we don't have a lot of cleared land. This is 13.5 acres of forest, and it's what we wanted. We wanted to be in the woods, where we weren't worried about landscaping and making things look manicured. We had kind of come out of suburbia and just didn't want that burden. But I also didn't really think through at the time, how little I would be able to grow in the soil here because of the sloping of the land that is cleared and the lack of sun. I did start gardening here in 2020, put in no-dig garden beds. I've done all the different ways. Back to Eden, permaculture food forest. I had a massive permaculture food forest in Florida. All those things. I have one here. This is a permaculture food forest. This is my medicinal garden, and it's where I grow fruit and berries. So I still do those things, but to grow and replace the grocery store, I needed a better way to grow food. Now, in 2021, when inflation was on the rise and it just became apparent that the world was going to be changed forever, especially financially with inflation and things, I just decided it was time to take growing our own food and having that secured more seriously, really being able to replace the grocery store. Well, it's hard to do that with soil gardens, whether you have a lot of space or not, unless you love canned food and preserving. I personally do not. I like tomato sauce, and I like tomato sauce, red things. I would use canned tomatoes and tomato sauce in soups. But other than that, I just was interested in fresh food. I eat a plant-based diet personally, and my husband eats mostly plant-based as well. So a lot of produce was the key, and fresh produce. So that's what got me into aeroponics. I was familiar with aeroponics. I had a tower when I lived in Jacksonville, Florida, and I was growing a lot of our own food. I was kind of called to preparedness and just feeling, just having my eyes opened to the reality of our world back in 2012. And so I was already doing those things. Permaculture, food forest. I had a tower trying to grow all our own food. I never could replace the grocery store. So what I did here was decided to go back to the towers because I could grow them in the garage all winter long. And I just dove all in. Like I just decided, okay, this is a system I can manage easily on my own, because I was looking at some hydroponic systems. Now, since then, I have a hydroponic system that is amazing. There's just a difference in the two. I can grow everything on the towers, pumpkins, winter squash, like huge vining things, tomatoes of any kind, outside. Inside, it's more limiting, and you can't do that with a lot of hydroponic systems unless you get kind of complicated and greenhouses. And I needed it to be simple. I needed to be able to afford it. So being able to get like one tower at a time was huge. I have 13 towers, and I just dove all in. Like, this is how we were going to replace the grocery store. So I made it happen. And that's what we do. We grow all our own produce using aeroponics. I now have a hydroponic system I'm about to set up to grow greens for the community, because fresh food is huge right now. People are donating a ton of things, and there's a lot of food coming in, but it comes in cans and boxes. It's emergency food. And at some point, it's not healthy. I think fresh food, someone said they got a fresh salad the other day and we're just like, their eyes lit up. So that's my goal, is hopefully I can bring fresh salad, fresh greens into people and brighten their day. So I'm going to use my other hydroponic system for that. I will show you guys that in this video. Just a quick look at what that is. And I'll tell you what I'm doing right now. So I also have permaculture food forest. Our landscaping is a permaculture food forest where I have lots of medicinal herbs, survival crops like Jerusalem artichokes, berries and fruits and all sorts of things. So I do tiny fruit trees so I can plant a ton of them and have variety without being overwhelmed. I'm also really big on using simple, sustainable systems that are easy to manage. So I don't like to grow a row of tomatoes and then all your tomatoes come in at once and then you're preserving. Like, that's overwhelming to me. I like to have little bits of things all the time. So that's why I garden this way. So small fruit trees are never overbearing. They're never overwhelming. You don't have to do a lot of huge pruning on them where you're having to haul big limbs, because we're keeping them small and manageable. That's the goal. So that's what I do here on this channel. If you're here and you're new from Hurricane Helene, just to kind of give you an idea. So today is day 10 of Hurricane Helene. Right now we went to church and took the day off. I was going to go work and just emotionally felt like I needed a break. A lot of things. The weather's going to change. It's going to get cold next week, so I have big concerns about that. Rescue's the biggest thing. We've got a lot of resources. They're probably in the wrong locations. So I would say if you're trying to donate or you want to donate, maybe hold off until next week and see what the needs are, or shift to camping gear, tents, zero weather sleeping bags, ways to cook food, ways to purify water, that kind of stuff. There are going to be people without water and power for months. Heard of a story today. Someone came into the church, which is at the high school, looking for supplies. A father and 2 children living behind a dumpster because they've lost their home, wanting to get things to cook. There are a lot of people in this area that are not going to go to a shelter. They will rough it out, live in tents before they would do that. I've seen that when I'm out driving in some of the areas where I have friends. People have tents propped up in their front yards. So if they can't sleep in their homes, I have personal friends who did that for months when they were remodeling their home. It's just kind of the culture out here. It's not financially feasible for a lot of people to just go rent a hotel or stay somewhere, and those same kind of people would rather sleep in. I am one of those people. Like, I will sleep in a tent through the winter, no thought about it, before I would go to a shelter personally. All right, so what we're doing here, this is my grow tent for my mushrooms. So I grow mushrooms on logs. That's more of a survival food because they're long-term. You do them once. I'm trying to do them every 2 years. So this year we'll cut down trees and do it again. I grow them indoors. because it's replacing the grocery store. So I'll use blocks. And then I also, once they burned out in this system, I take them out to different places and get second life out of them. So I put them in wood chip beds. I've got a green stock that I grow them in. I've got lots of videos on this if you want to look and learn about mushrooms. They're under the playlist mushrooms. I'll put that in the description below. So that's what we're doing. So let me show you what I clean with. This is such handy stuff. I use this for the towers, for weeds on our rocks, and for cleaning. It is weed killer, all natural weed and grass killer. Works amazing. It'll make your yard smell like Whole Foods. And it's got citric acid, salt, I think salt. I know it has citric acid and vinegar in it, which is what I want to clean this with. This, when the power went out and then things fell apart, I didn't go manage my mushrooms. It does not mean they're dead. I have a video on them. I just had to transition them outside, but some of them did grow a little bit of mold. Again, that does not mean they're ruined, but it does mean I need to thoroughly clean this before I set it back up, because I don't want any contamination to go onto the new mushroom fruiting blocks that I'm about to put in here. I'm just gonna spray this in there, and then we're gonna go pick up milk from my milk guy down the street, and then I'll rinse this out when I come back. All right, so to clean this, I'm just gonna spray it. And then I also soak my towers. I'll show you what they look like. In the same, I'll put them in water in a tub with some of this. And it works great too, just to get debris off of the towers, like minerals. I don't usually take my towers down to nothing in them and restart over, but these were from the summer crops. And so that's a little bit different. When you've got summer crops that burn out completely, then I'll take them, re-clean them, and I have new starts ready to go for what we're gonna grow in the garage all winter. I do interval planting, have a lot of videos on this, and that is how we replace the grocery store. So just gonna spray this down, give it a nice dose. This tent is the Boom Room 2 from North Spore. I will put a link with a coupon below for mushroom supplies. Whew, it's strong. They are amazing. Again, it's just vinegar, so it's not dangerous. I'm not using any chemicals or anything. They are amazing. They've been super supportive of my content here on the channel, as far as like helping make mushroom growing easy to everyone, because I think it can be overwhelming, and mushroom people can be a bit like geeked out about mushrooms. It's like a whole culture, and it overwhelmed me for a long time. So I try to keep it just simple. Like for me, it's about growing food. How do we do that? Get the most out of our investment that we make, which is why I grow them inside, and then they have phases where they go outside and then eventually into the garden beds, and that gets us the most out of our investment. So that's what I do, and they're super supportive of that, and they actually even checked in on us personally. So I think that's super important also, like in the world we live in. And during a crisis, like have your people, and that can't even be internet people. You know, I've never met them in person, but they had genuine concern to check in and make sure we are okay. And that's really awesome. So definitely support them. They have the best stuff anyway, as far as mushrooms go. But this is all we're doing. We're just giving it a good spray. And these are simple systems. Everything I use is pretty low maintenance. I do have to clean this more than the towers. And if you watch my tower videos, I kind of turn things over, but I'm only cleaning them, and it takes about an hour a tower, like twice a year. So not much. I'll tidy them, but not a deep clean. Mushrooms in a boom room. I also have a tabletop version I'm going to be sharing, and I'm actually working on a growing mushrooms at home course that makes it super simple to get the most out of your stuff. But this is bigger. I'm growing like 9 blocks at a time sometimes. I have found I need to wash this out every like 2 months, which makes sense. Mushrooms are kind of messy. They are decomposing. Their job is to decompose things. But this is how I do it. I just rinse it off, spray a little vinegar. You don't need to buy this. You can just use vinegar. And you don't even need the citric acid. That's just what I use because I have it, and I'm going to use it for my towers anyway. But just vinegar will do it too. And that's it. This weed killer works. Like if you want to keep your lawn nice. We use it on our rocks, and once you get them established, it's like so great. It's hard to find natural things that work sometimes, and this one works. All right, so the other thing I do a few things for food security. Growing our own fresh produce, growing our own complete protein source, mushrooms. But I also get our local things that my children use from local farmers. So I'm going to pick up milk, and then we bulk buy. So I purchase all of our bulk products from Azure Standard. I'll put a link below. I've talked about them before, and they are still delivering to this area. So the truck will come in a week, which is amazing because it keeps us out of the grocery stores. Our grocery store here is Ingles, and their distribution center went under in the flood. Significant food shortages in the Ingles, not in the Walmart I've heard, and not in the Publix, but I just prefer to not have to go to those places if we don't have to, and I can get almost everything at Azure, which is wonderful. All right, we're doing a little cleanup over here, so it's a little messy, but these are my towers that went down with the hurricane. They don't typically fall down. These fell because I had them attached to the arbor, and the arbors went down. They're totally fine. I'll just pick them up. I'm going to take them apart and clean them. They were done anyway, which is another reason they went down, because they didn't have any weight in them, and I didn't have them running. Had they had mature plants and weight in them, they would not have gone down. These are jelly melons, still edible. I've actually just been letting them ripen here and then eating them. So that's it. The towers, I'll just take them apart and give them a quick scrub, and they'll be ready to grow again. This is Kitty. And over here, again, more stuff. What we're doing is, so all the mess you may see around is what we're doing is kind of getting our preps in order. We cleaned out this covered part to put our generator. We just had things. We had the things because I believe in preparedness, but we didn't necessarily have them all up and running and ready for such a huge crisis. So now we're kind of making sure we've got all our systems organized and neat and tidy, which means we're making a big mess first. And it just makes it so much simpler. I am going to share that with you guys because there's a lot of things that make a huge difference. Like in our house, you will see it's decorated with like wall sconces with candles. Those are intentional in every room because when the power goes out, all you have to do is light the candle and you instantly have light. And it's nice light. It's safe to sleep in because they're lanterns that have glass, and so it's good light to like leave a couple of them on that are safe at night, where like kerosene lamps, I don't like to leave those running if we're not next to them. So a lot of that stuff just made a huge difference. Like instead of having to pull everything out and wonder where everything is, I just was like, oh, power's out, light the candles. So love that. I'll show you guys some of that in another video. Here's another one of those little crop planes. I got this really cool antique gas stove that's from a company that's discontinued, and we got that in. Literally, I've had it for months, but we couldn't figure out how to get it to work, and it was just complicated, and I had to rip out cabinets to get it in. We got it in literally just like a couple of weeks ago, and so that was amazing to have something to cook. That made all the difference in like staying healthy and being able to, you gotta have a way to eat this food. And that's one thing I have found with people that we are handing out food to at distribution centers. They don't want to take the rice and beans because they don't have a way to cook rice and beans or have water because there's no power in water. So, you know, it's just something to think about because I don't know, how long can you live on chips? You know, I just feel really bad. They're eating chips and granola bars, and that stuff isn't sustainable, and it's only comforting for a moment, and then it makes you feel bad. Where a hefty thing of rice and lentils with onions and a fresh salad, that is just a game changer in my opinion. So, this is beautiful eggplant. Just checking to see if they need to be harvested. Not yet, they can wait a day. All right, let's go get our milk. And just to continue with my story, because I know a lot of you guys are new here, I have been doing the food thing. No key. Okay, so if you're new to this idea of not going to a grocery store for the majority of your goods, I'll just kind of share what I have done over the years, because I did this in suburban Florida and now we are in rural North Carolina. And we traveled, like I said, for a year, and I even did it on the road. So it's totally possible no matter where you're at. You just have to do a few things to kind of get things going. The first, for me, it's towers. Replace the lettuce. I grow everything on the towers except for deep root vegetables. I grow those in Vigo garden beds. And then I shared to grow my mushrooms. So that was step 1 for us. Actually, that was like step 4. I did that. I solidified that just over the last couple of years. But before, in the past, I have run food co-ops where we're getting our food, like all food, most food comes from the farms and goes to distribution centers. Then they put out a list to grocery stores. All right, that was my husband. He wants to come and go downtown real quick. So that all the food goes to distribution centers and then the grocery stores. So the things that are at Whole Foods are at Publix and so on and so forth. Now, obviously, like Walmart has their own stuff, and then our Ingles had their own distribution center. But that's why Publix still has food right now, because they get their food from distribution centers that are somewhere else. So I would run a food co-op with another friend. She had really started this thing and mastered it. It's really hard to back up a hill on a rocky road with the sun blaring in my mirror so I cannot see. She headed that. She kind of started that, and then I helped run it in our area. So we would order the food from the distribution center and break it out into boxes. You can do that. You can sign up with the CSA. So there might be one of those in your area. You can usually find them on like Facebook groups. I recommend joining permaculture Facebook groups in your area. They tend to know about where the food sources are, or, gardening groups. There's Facebook. I mean, social media has its problems, but it's great for that kind of stuff. So that's how I got fresh food for years. I also would go to farmers markets, and our farmers markets were not where they grew the food. They were actually picking it up places and taking it places. I hope he's not behind me because there is a light of the sun. Taking it places. They actually get it just like I was at the food co-op, and then selling it at the farmers market. So it wasn't things they were growing, just because I wasn't in a farm heavy area. I was in a suburban area. Here we're in a farm heavy area, so the farmers markets aren't like that here. So I would go to the farmers markets and buy our food there and build relationships, and they would give me a ton of food for free that I could store. I used to get tons, like cases of mushrooms, because they knew they were going to go bad anyway, and I would dry those. So that was a great resource for food. Food co-op, as your standard, like I mentioned. I'll put links to everything I mentioned below. That is a company out of Oregon, have super high standards on the quality of food. And so dry goods, even sour cream, things like that the children want, butter, that all comes from there. And if there's not a drop in your area, I actually run the drop in our area. It's super easy to do. It's not a big deal. And let me think, what else? Find your local farmers and people who have milk. And you can do that again on Facebook groups, asking around, find your people, and they know.
Still got water. Can't get away from that water. Look at that. It's still seeping out of the building.
Okay. Wow, looks way better actually. We could use a good rain. All right, so we went into my husband's office, and this building probably looks the best out of all of the ones being cleaned up. They're just working super fast to beat the mold. Let me show you. This building was an old factory. I think they made gloves, and it was gorgeous. Like they did, it's still gorgeous. All the fixtures, everything is just so beautiful. This room is like a living room, kitchen, and just decorated, so neat, just so beautiful. But the floors are concrete. So that's nice. That makes it easier. They were concrete anyway. Sorry, it's going to be dark in here. And this is actually my husband's office. This is where he works. This building right here, this room right here is his. How's it looking? Looks good. Muddy. All right, so we're back from downtown now. It's kind of late, so I'm not going to have time to do my towers, but that's okay. We are just working on building resilience a little bit every day. So I'll be volunteering tomorrow, probably in downtown, and I'm going to spend an hour here at some point tomorrow working on getting our place in order and tidy. And then obviously I still have to grow food. That's like the everyday stuff. But we just had some systems like my worm composting bin. I had a different one that bears can get into. And so that's been not making worm compost. And we need the worm compost to fill the Vigo beds. The Vigo beds have been sitting all over the yard because I haven't really been committed on where I want them. But now I know where I want them because we got the rain barrel set up. So it's just like getting these things done. So if you are trying to prepare, this is what I would say. Don't not do it because you can't do everything. This has been years of kind of pouring into different systems, finding the things that are mine and that work, and then getting rid of the things that don't. When I originally started preparing, I did a lot of like buckets of food, like freeze-dried things. We won't eat that. I can't physically eat that food. I've eaten a couple and they make me super sick. I need real fresh food. I need to be able to cook my beans and rice and vegetables and healthy foods. So I don't do those anymore. Now I grow food because that's what we need to thrive every day, even when we have access to stores, but then also have access to food during emergency situations. And I don't prepare for like one particular thing. Nobody saw this coming. It hasn't affected us a lot in where we are right here in our home. So I don't need a lot of my preps right now, but there's so much going on in the world that I just want to make sure. And I also talk a lot about on this channel, I don't trust the food systems and what they're putting on the food and in the food and the lab foods that they're making. Our systems are changing, and that's part of like what's happening by 2030. And I don't want to be a part of those things. I do not have any interest in man-made food. So this is security from that. You know, it's so whatever you're feeling called, if you are feeling called to preparedness, it can look different for every home. We'll have our different things and just chip away with whatever you can if you are trying to create some sort of security. A way to grow your own greens. Greens at the grocery store are pretty old by the time you get them. They're not nutrient filled anymore. That's an easy one. Let me show you my harvest wall. So sprouting, I do a lot of sprouting. That is an incredibly affordable way to, I'll put my sprouting jars below. I use jars and trays. That's an incredible way to get fresh, super nutrient dense food into your body, where you can stop relying on the grocery store for that. And if you're not eating those, you can add a super nutrient rich food into your diet for health purposes right away. Very little investment. Let me turn this around. This right here is my harvest wall. This thing is amazing. I have a really small cabin. And this would even fit in there. And it's different than the towers for a couple of reasons. For one, the towers are round, so they just have a different shape that takes a different kind of space. But the towers, like I said, will grow really big food and grow lettuce, but this grows a lot of greens. So if you want to replace greens and bok choys and herbs, small cabbages, kales, those kind of things grow super fast on here. You could be pumping out a ton of greens in this system. And then it's got larger pots, which I'm going to use for aloe that I juice, You can grow tomatoes, you can grow cucumbers. You don't fill them all up, it's a little different. I'll show you how to do this once I get it going. But yeah, it's an option. It's a great option. These are the lights. Those are more of an investment than the towers, but they also have benefits over the towers. And the towers have benefits over those. So you gotta kind of know what your goals are. Like I said, the towers replaced me growing in garden beds because I'm growing everything, squash, cucumbers, pumpkins, everything. That grows a ton of lettuce, a ton of greens, a ton of herbs, a couple of things like bush cucumbers and peas and things. It uses a tremendously low amount of power if it's outside. It's hydroponics, not aeroponics, just difference. There's differences there. It's actually why I'm doing the worm composting too, because we use worm composting to start those. And you're using a soil base or a cocoa core with worm worm casings, and so you've got a different. Yeah, so it's just a little different hydroponics. So there's the towers. All right, guys, thanks for joining me. Thanks for coming along on my channel. I know a lot are probably here to watch what's happening with Hurricane Helene. I hope you stay and feel inspired to take control of some of your own food. And I just try to provide simple, like I said, simple, sustainable systems that can be used in any space. And I like to show a wide variety. I know not everyone can afford a hydroponic wall to begin with. So maybe it's starting with, and that might be overwhelming to some people. So maybe it's starting with sprouting. Maybe it's starting with small mushroom kit. I know a lot of people don't even know how to eat mushrooms that you can grow at home. I didn't, and I'm pretty like earthy. I don't know what the word is. Crunchy, I think is the word that's used. Like I know how to eat a lot of plants, but when I started growing oyster mushrooms, I was like, uh-oh, what do I do with these? Oh, so I share a lot of that on my channel too. Like, how do you eat the food you grow? Look at this food. Over here, I found a lot of people don't know how to eat eggplant. I get that question quite a bit. Parsley, we go through a ton of parsley. So you will see, obviously, cucumbers and things are amazing. The purple lady bok choys. Arugula, look at all my amazing arugula. This I will eat this week. And I only ate arugula at fancy restaurants before I grew it. And it's so healthy for you and it removes heavy metals. And now it's like one of my favorite things to eat. All this parsley too. I grow a ton of parsley because I put it in a salad. I make tabbouleh and I make a Mediterranean salad. I have a little recipe book. I'll put that down below. And I use this. Both of those recipes are in there. I kind of switch them up too. If you watch my stories or my reels and things, I change it up a lot. But I'm eating like a whole bundle of these. Every week I make that salad for us that we kind of nibble on. So much nutrition. I never did that before. I had my own grocery store and my driveway. This is my driveway, by the way. So you don't need farmland. You don't need a lot of land. But I never would have bought that kind of parsley and used that much parsley prior to growing it. And so that's my goal, is to just share what we're doing. I like to try and make it as simple as possible, share lots of things that are affordable and easy. And then there are going to be some more advanced things that we're doing here because I'm doing this at a larger scale. But this hurricane has been such an eye-opener, and I'm going to cry again, on the importance of why we should all have some sort of, Roots and Refuge uses this word a lot, resilience, not being dependent on broken systems, toxic food systems, or changes that are coming with our food systems that I don't want to be a part of. I do not want to be a part of those. And my goal is just to help you guys that are interested to do the same. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys on the next video.